afternoon and welcome to this webinar focusing on a joint initiative of the European Centre for Modern Languages, the ECML, and the European Commission, entitled Supporting Multilingual Classrooms, SMC for short. My name is Sarah Breslin and I'm the Executive Director of the ECML and Head of Language Policy at the Council of Europe. It's a pleasure for me to open this webinar and to know that so many of you have chosen to take part. First, some technical information. This webinar is bilingual, with some people speaking English and others speaking French. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a globe icon. You can either leave this on the original language if you understand both English and French, or you can switch to either English or French only. There's a chat function and a quick Q&A function. Please use the chat if you'd like to introduce yourself or share any resources with other people, but keep the Q&A for any questions you might have, and we hope that there will be time at the end to address these questions. And please also have your smartphones at the ready, you're going to need them. And now a little bit of background information. The ECML is part of the Council of Europe, whose work in the field of language education dates back to the European Cultural Convention of 1954. It is fair to say that the Council has been a trailblazer in language education, producing world-renowned instruments such as the CEFR. In 1994, the Council established the ECML, an enlarged partial agreement currently with 36 member states and based in Graz, Austria. Broadly speaking, there are two strands to the ECML's work. The development strand, where we organise international projects which result in new resources for language professionals, and the mediation strand, where we take the results of these projects and help member states to adapt and implement them in their different contexts through our training and consultancy activities. These are complemented by webinars such as today's, think tanks, colloquia and conferences. Since 2012, the ECML has had a strong cooperation agreement with the European Commission, which allows us to expand our activities under outreach, for example, through training and consultancy, through colloquia, such as the one on December the 4th on regional minority languages in secondary education, and through the production of new resources, such as our recently launched Motivation Manifesto. We are hugely grateful to the Commission, and in particular to my counterpart Anna Solimena, for this mutually beneficial partnership. It is a partnership based on shared values and a shared commitment to promoting Europe's linguistic diversity and to ensuring that young people who are learning through a language which is not their first language get the support they need in language-aware schools and through language-sensitive teaching practices. Our focus on implementation is supported by high-level political instruments. For the Commission, this is the 2019 Council of the European Union recommendation on a comprehensive approach to language learning and teaching. For the Council of Europe, it is the 2020 Committee of Ministers recommendation on the importance of plurilingual and intercultural education for democratic culture. This recommendation challenges the myth that English is enough and that migrant languages somehow endanger social cohesion. It shows how language education that values all languages equally is essential for our democracies to thrive. And this is why the ECML's current programme is entitled Language Education at the Heart of Democracy. So, having set the scene, let me now hand over to Terry Lamb, Coordinator of the SMC initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to everyone here for your interest in supporting multilingual classrooms and for attending this webinar. I'm going to now, we're going to share slides, and I think they're about to come up. And can I start by thanking Adelina, who is moving these forward for us. So this is a multilingual welcome to you all. From me and from all of the people who are waiting to share insights into SMC to you today in this webinar. Sarah asked you to have your phones ready because we've decided that we would start the webinar just to get you warmed up with a word cloud activity. So you'll see now on the screen a QR code, which you need to point your camera at and open up the little box that opens, that pops up. And the question is, what word springs to mind when you think of a multilingual classroom? The word can be in French, it can be in English. It's up to you. Please just maybe stick to one. I know that it asks you if you want to do a second and a third, but I'm not sure how many people are here, and I don't want the system to crash. But please, we'll just give you some seconds, a minute or so, just to think of a word that springs to mind. A multilingual classroom. And here we are. This is wonderful. It's getting small now, so I need to just look over my glasses. Very interesting comments. Okay, thank you very much. I have to say that I'm really, really happy with the words that you're coming up. They're largely very, very positive. And, you know, obviously it's inevitable that we also have some questions and some doubts, and I can see some of that, but predominantly this is very, very positive. We do often find in the Supporting Multilingual Classroom workshops that participants at the start of the workshop are, of course, more aware of the problems of teaching and learning in multilingual classrooms than they are of any benefits or anything like that, because they're having to deal with issues on a day-to-day basis. However, in the course of the workshop and through various experiential learning activities, they tend to start to come around and understand the value of the multilingual classroom as a resource for everybody. So thank you for that. That's absolutely brilliant. I'll share my word just to start off my next part. My word is inspiration. I don't know if anyone's put inspiration, it could be inspirational. Now, why inspiration? Well, having started my teaching career many, many years ago in very multilingual secondary schools in London, I'm still inspired and committed to continue working on multilingual classrooms decades later. I also remember how inspired my students were, and it was an 11 to 18 school, how inspired they were by their classmates' plurilingualism, and in fact became more motivated to learn other languages themselves. The plurilingual learners in the classroom, and there were a lot, there were 40 languages in the school, they would visibly kind of grow. You know, they sat up in their chair when they saw or heard their language being used in maybe a language awareness class, you know, for the purposes of teaching as a resource. They weren't used to that. All it took to create this was to develop opportunities and activities that included the linguistic diversity as a resource for learning, rather than ignoring it and wishing it wasn't there because it's too complicated, it's too difficult. That really brought about this wonderful change. And it wasn't just learners, it was other teachers. We had a teacher who developed a multilingual maths week, for example. Parents were inspired, all inspired to enjoy the diversity rather than fearing it or seeing it just as a problem. In fact, it opened doors to appreciating all other kinds of diversity as well, cultural diversity, ethnic diversity, etc. So this is the heart of supporting multilingual classrooms. It's about shifting societal attitudes, which is taken from the Council of Europe's recommendation that Sarah's just mentioned to you. Shifting societal attitudes in ways like this. So it's the link to the recommendation. So if we look at the next slide, please, Adelina. Thank you. This is the recommendation that's from the Council of Europe that Sarah's just mentioned. You'll see that it's a recommendation on the importance of plurilingual and intercultural education for democratic culture. Why democratic? What's the link? How is democracy, how is this link conceptualized in this recommendation? If we look at the next slide, we find the purpose of the recommendation. And you'll see there, it's quite clear, the efficient functioning of democracies depends on social inclusion and societal integration, which in turn depend on an understanding of, respect for, and engagement with linguistic and cultural diversity. This is what was happening in the school where I worked, and this is what I've seen happening in schools all over the world, where people are bringing the languages and cultures in as a resource. So it aims at plurilingual and intercultural and recognizes its importance for personal and professional development, equity, societal integration, the exercise of human rights, and participation in democratic culture. SMC is also aligned with the principles of the recommendation. I don't have time to go into detail, but just a couple of examples. One is respecting and valuing linguistic and cultural diversity, promoting language awareness and language sensitivity across the curriculum, and the inclusion of disadvantaged and marginalized learning through the inclusion of their languages and attention to the language of schooling, principally academic language. You'll find out more about this in the following presentations. If we can look at the programme, you'll see here we've got an array of people who are going to be presenting from the team itself, as well as some of the people who we work with in different countries who have been involved in coordinating these workshops. I won't read through this in great detail, but we're going to move on next to Katrien Carré-Carlinger, who will give you more detailed information about SMC. And then we'll have a panel where we'll talk about motivations for hosting a workshop and whether they've addressed national needs with people from 3 different countries. Chantal will say something about what happens in our workshops. Then we have a view from a participant, a national and regional perspective. And before our question time, we'll end with some examples of impact and follow-up. Thank you for listening. And without more ado, I'm going to hand over to Katrien now. Katrien, if you can put your...
Oui.
Yeah.
Vous pouvez... Ok, vous pouvez m'entendre? Oui, bonjour à tous et merci beaucoup Thierry. C'est donc avec un grand plaisir que je vais vous présenter maintenant cette initiative. Comme vous l'avez souligné, Thierry et Sarah, elle répond donc directement à une volonté démocratique européenne. Dans le cadre de cette initiative, nous proposons des ateliers de formation destinés d'une part à aider les États membres à assurer l'accès à une éducation de qualité pour les apprenants ayant un parcours migratoire, a contribué à combler l'écart de scolarisation entre ces apprenants et les élèves n'ayant pas de parcours migratoire, et d'autre part, a favorisé le développement de compétences linguistiques approfondies pour qu'elles deviennent des compétences transversales clés, facilitant l'apprentissage en général, l'employabilité et la cohésion sociale. Pour atteindre ces objectifs, il s'agit donc d'apporter un soutien pédagogique à tous les échelons du monde éducatif. Et c'est ce que vise à faire notre équipe à travers ces ateliers. Diapo suivante. Notre équipe, qui se compose actuellement de 5 membres que vous voyez sur cette diapositive, donc Cherry, dont vous avez déjà fait connaissance, notre coordinateur, professeur à l'Université de Westminster au Royaume-Uni, Mercè Bernaus, ex-professeur de l'Université autonome de Barcelone en Espagne, Chantal Müller, ex-professeur à Elanux, Haute École de Namur, Liège, Luxembourg en Belgique, et Katja Schinzer, professeure à la Haute École pédagogique de la Fachhochschule du Nord-Ouest suisse, et moi-même, Catherine Garré-Carlinger, ex-professeure de la Haute École pédagogique de Haute-Autriche. Nous assurons le travail conceptuel ensemble, au sein de toute l'équipe, et nous animons les ateliers en petites équipes de 2 personnes. La diapo suivante. Merci. En quoi consiste donc concrètement cette initiative? Elle s'appuie sur un large éventail de projets et de ressources du CELV ayant fait leur preuve bien sûr, et qui mettent l'accent sur des approches inclusives, plurilingues et interculturelles. Elle recourt aussi à d'autres ressources de l'Union européenne, comme par exemple des guides pour les politiques linguistiques et la pédagogie publiés par le Conseil de l'Europe, ou bien des projets Erasmus+, impliquant des équipes internationales, dont certains membres sont également experts du CELV. Il s'agit surtout de promouvoir des stratégies innovantes pour développer les compétences des apprenants dans la ou les langues d'enseignement, tout en valorisant les langues familiales de tous les enfants et adolescents, et en s'appuyant sur ces langues qui représentent une riche ressource pour l'apprentissage. Diapositive suivante. À qui s'adressent nos ateliers? En fait, ils s'adressent à tous les acteurs du monde de l'éducation et cherchent à atteindre tous les niveaux du système éducatif. Ils offrent un soutien adapté aux éducateurs et éducatrices, enseignants des langues, qu'ils soient étrangères, de scolarisation familiale ou bien celles des minorités linguistiques, aux enseignants aussi d'autres disciplines, aux formateurs d'enseignants, aux conseillers et conseillères pédagogiques, au personnel administratif chef d'établissement scolaire, aux responsables de programmes d'études, aux décideurs politiques et sans oublier les représentants de la communauté au sens large, comme les municipalités, les ONG, les parents, etc. Diapo suivante. Tous les ateliers que nous proposons respectent donc les mêmes principes fondamentaux. Nous cherchons avant tout à répondre aux besoins locaux et nationaux des pays demandeurs. Nous mettons l'accent sur l'impact dans leur monde éducatif réciproque, c'est-à-dire que nous essayons d'esquisser des pistes leur permettant de faire évoluer les pratiques éducatives et pédagogiques. Nous élaborons un programme apportant un soutien à tous les apprenants, pas seulement à ceux à celles qui possèdent un parcours migratoire. Nous mettons l'accent sur le développement de la conscience linguistique de tous, celle des apprenants, des enseignants, des parents. Nous proposons des stratégies, des activités et du matériel pédagogique permettant l'inclusion de toutes les langues faisant partie du répertoire linguistique de l'apprenant. Et nous concevons nos ateliers comme des modèles, miroirs de la classe multilingue, en y adoptant les mêmes principes pédagogiques. Diapo suivante. Comme vous le voyez, notre initiative existe depuis pratiquement 10 ans. Au cours de ces 10 années, nous avons pu proposer déjà 81 ateliers de 2 jours, répartis sur 30 pays membres. Certains pays ont demandé et accueilli nos ateliers déjà plusieurs fois, comme par exemple la Grèce et le Portugal. Nous invitons donc particulièrement ceux qui n'ont pas encore saisi l'opportunité d'une coopération et qui nous écoutent à contacter le CELV. Grâce à ce travail qui est vraiment fascinant, nous avons accumulé une expérience précieuse qui nous permet donc d'affiner constamment nos interventions. Les défis auxquels sont confrontés chacun de ces pays diffèrent amplement, ainsi que leurs options stratégiques. L'éventail thématique est donc particulièrement large, allant de la valorisation des langues minoritaires et familiales à la langue de scolarisation, en passant par une réflexion sur les attitudes et les inégalités linguistiques, la formation des enseignants et les politiques éducatives. Diapo suivante. L'animation d'un atelier demande une préparation méticuleuse en amont, puisqu'il s'agit d'établir en coopération avec les coordinateurs et les autorités locales un programme sur mesure. Cette préparation se déroule bien sûr à distance, par courriel et en ligne. Dans un premier temps, il est nécessaire de définir les objectifs, d'identifier le groupe cible, donc de déterminer le profil et les besoins des futurs participants. Le choix préalable d'un des modules proposés sur notre site peut alors être confirmé, élargi ou bien révisé. Il est ensuite possible de sélectionner les thèmes et contenus devant être abordés en fonction des besoins qui ont été identifiés. Tous les éléments sont alors sur la table pour concevoir le programme, préparer le calendrier et les aspects pratiques de l'atelier. Diapo suivante. Pour répondre aux souhaits divers et aux besoins des pays membres, nous proposons plusieurs modules que nous avons adaptés au fil du temps. Nous en avons aussi élargi la palette. La différence entre les modules repose d'abord sur le public cible. L'un s'adresse aux enseignants de langue et vise à améliorer l'enseignement de façon à développer des compétences plurilingues chez tous les apprenants. Un autre module s'adresse aux enseignants de toutes les matières, avec pour objectif de promouvoir dans les classes multilingues un enseignement démocratique sensible à la dimension langagière. Un troisième module prend en compte toute l'école dans une approche globale et apporte un support au développement d'une dimension langagière plus holistique. Et nous avons ajouté un module pour les formateurs d'enseignants en formation initiale et continue. Deux autres modules tiennent plutôt compte du contexte géographique. Un module propose un suivi aux pays membres désirant réitérer leur demande pour le même groupe de participants. Et finalement, nous offrons aussi la possibilité d'un atelier régional qui regrouperait par exemple des pays voisins ou ayant un contexte linguistique similaire. Diapo suivante. Le CELV offre plusieurs ateliers de formation et conseils, mais ce qui distingue particulièrement nos ateliers, c'est tout d'abord la grande flexibilité en termes de dynamique, avec des ateliers répondant à des besoins vraiment spécifiques en constante évolution et propres à chaque contexte national, une remise en question des idées reçues et un effort pour promouvoir un changement positif des mentalités face à la diversité conçue comme une richesse. Des stratégies pour réfléchir et valoriser toutes les identités et pour créer un espace sûr pour tous, un espace d'expression donnant la parole à chacun, une prise en compte du bien-être et de la réussite scolaire de tous les apprenants, un apprentissage par l'expérience vécue au cours des ateliers et favorisant le développement professionnel des participants dans une atmosphère protégée. Et finalement, un accent mis sur l'impact des activités choisies et le développement de la collaboration à tous les niveaux. Diapo suivante. Cette collaboration est nécessaire pour faire évoluer la dimension démocratique des systèmes éducatifs de manière durable. Elle se définit par une approche holistique, donc de l'apprentissage des langues, prenant en compte tout le répertoire langagier, une approche transversale et interdisciplinaire au sein de l'établissement scolaire, reliant toutes les matières par les langues et prenant en compte l'éducation à la citoyenneté. Ces approches soulignent la nécessité d'aider tous les apprenants à développer la langue d'enseignement, la nécessité de reconnaître le rôle essentiel des parents dans l'éducation, y compris de ceux issus de la migration, les avantages mutuels liés au développement de partenariats avec la communauté au sens large et l'urgence de promouvoir un environnement inclusif propice au développement démocratique des écoles dans nos sociétés multilingues. Diapo suivante. Cette approche collaborative au sein de l'école est complétée par un regard qui ouvre les établissements scolaires donc à la communauté. Dans cet esprit, nos ateliers abordent aussi le rôle crucial des parents dans l'éducation et la nécessité d'établir une coopération efficace avec le corps enseignant. La pédagogie de projet permet quant à elle de créer des liens avec les écoles et la communauté au sens large, de promouvoir l'action avec un impact réel sur la vie quotidienne et d'engendrer ainsi la motivation pour l'apprentissage, celui des langues et en général. Diapo suivante. Hormis les ateliers, nous avons créé un site web où sont rassemblés des témoignages vidéo issus de plusieurs pays. On y trouve aussi des exemples d'activités mises en place pendant les ateliers. Comme beaucoup de collègues, notre équipe a aussi participé au soutien des réfugiés ukrainiens et rassemblé du matériel pédagogique, des informations et des recommandations pour accompagner les enseignants à promouvoir leur meilleure intégration scolaire. Pour conclure, j'aimerais résumer de manière plus symbolique le rôle de SMC, comme nous avons pris l'habitude de nommer notre travail. SMC est porteur d'empathie, de complémentarité dans la diversité, de tolérance et de respect, de la pluralité des voix et des identités, de justice et de cohésion sociale, de réussite scolaire pour tous et de professionnalisme. SMC est un vecteur pour une éducation de qualité et un avenir plus démocratique. Il est pour nous synonyme d'empowerment. Je vous remercie beaucoup pour votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Catherine. Excellent. Parfait. I'm going to just pass over straight away to Katya, who will explain what's happening in the panel.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Terry. So now, after we've just heard from my colleague Katrin about the 3 SMC modules, about the different target groups and the flexible program, we will look at examples from 3 countries where SMC workshops have already been conducted. And I'm very happy to introduce our 3 interview partners. So first, this is Lilia Vicente from Portugal, who is organizing this year her 5th SMC workshop. She is responsible in the ministry in Lisbon for teachers and school principals training nationwide. She holds a degree in modern languages and literatures, a master in pedagogical supervision and teacher evaluation, and a PhD in educational sciences. Then second, we have Milena Kostic from Serbia, who has already organized 2 workshops. She is a language policy officer who works at the Foundation Tempus, which is the national Erasmus Plus agency in Serbia. She's also an English language teacher, holds a PhD in cognitive linguistics, and serves as national contact point and national nominating authority for the ECML. And then third, we have Daniel Rosen from Sweden, who has also organized 3 workshops. He is a director of education at the Swedish National Agency for Education. He organizes professional development activities and programs for teachers, preschool teachers and TED teachers. His background is that he was previously a teacher of English, French, and Spanish. And in turn, now they will share their experiences by answering the questions you can see on the slide. So why did you want to organize an SMC workshop? Which modules did you choose? Who did you invite? What did you hope to achieve? How did the workshop meet your country's needs? Did it make an impact on policy? Have there been any changes in practice? And what was the feedback from participants? And yes, I'm very happy now that we can start. Lilia, would you please start?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Katya, for your presentation, and thank you to the ECML for the opportunity to share with you all our experience here in Portugal concerning the organization of these workshops. So, as a matter of fact, the Director General I work for, which is Director General for Schools Administration, is the responsible in Portugal for the monitoring and development of school management and autonomy, and also for the teachers and school principals career management and CPD. We've always chosen module number 3, developing language-aware schools, because it is the topic that better meets our interests here at our Director General. In fact, Portuguese school principals have to deal with a challenging reality in their schools, not Portuguese, the school principals, I'm sure, due to the continuous migration flows and to the increasing geographical diversity of the migrants' origins. This requires, of course, innovative pedagogical approaches and the need to raise awareness and pay special attention to migrant families' integration. How do we do it? We invite the school cluster principal plus 1 other teacher. How is the selection of the participants made? It is by invitation, as I've just mentioned, but it is according to the school cluster multilingual and multicultural context. We also ask for a brief description of the school cluster context that we send to the trainers prior to the workshop. It is our conviction that school principals play a key role in creating a school culture that embraces an inclusive vision of education that welcomes and integrates all students. Why do we also invite another teacher? Because the role of head teacher is very demanding and time-consuming, and that's why we invite another teacher from the same school cluster. The school headmaster is accompanied by that teacher, who can be the head of the language department or the head of the projects or the teacher responsible for the teaching of Portuguese as a non-native language. So the main purpose of these workshops has been to help schools in addressing the challenges presented by multilingual and multicultural contexts. We do not have precise data regarding the impact, but we can state that to date, 48 school clusters attended the workshop, which means roughly 576 schools from preschool to upper secondary schools. Also, more or less 900 teachers had an impact, or the workshop had an impact more or less on 900 teachers, around 9,000 pupils. And what is also very important to mention is that a network of multicultural and multilingual school clusters was created. Of course, participating schools made different uses of the materials and activities presenting during the workshop by the trainers of the ECML, as you probably will hear from the colleague I've invited to be here today. Even those who did not use these materials and activities exactly as presented by the ECML trainers, they drew inspiration from them to create activities and materials specifically tailored to their context. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Lilia, for this interesting insight. And I would now invite Milena to share her experiences with us.
Thank you, Katja. I would also like to say how grateful we are that we are invited by the team of the SMC workshop and ECML to share our experience of organizing these very useful workshops in Serbia. So as you mentioned, we organized 2 workshops, one in 2023 and one in 2024. And we chose module entitled Supporting All Teachers with Language Development, including the language of schooling across the curriculum, so that teachers in Serbia would become more sensitive to multilingual contexts and actually be equipped with resources and materials to address students' needs in these contexts. Migrant students who mostly speak Ukrainian, Russian, and Arabic have been coming to the Serbian education system since 2016. So teachers in Serbia need support to address these students' needs and to actually make their integration into regular classes easier. When it comes to the participants that we invited, those were mainly language teachers in the workshop, and in the first workshop actually, and also the teachers of language of schooling. And in the second workshop, in addition to these 2 groups, I see that there is a problem with the sound. Should I continue? Can you hear me well? Because I see a question in the chat.
Yeah, you very well.
Okay, thank you. So in the second workshop, in addition to these 2 target groups, we also decided to invite teacher educators, university professors, and mentors who work with future teachers and who can actually raise their awareness of the importance of multilingualism in the classrooms and offer some advice and strategies on how to integrate students who are not that proficient in the language of schooling. The participants in the first workshop were highly satisfied with how it was organized, and what materials and resources they were presented with in this workshop. And they also expressed a significant need for such training, as there is lack of practical support for integrating migrant students into regular classes in Serbia, even though there are policy documents on the national level on this topic. Although there is a considerable number of migrant students and international students who need to be integrated in the school system in Serbia, teachers say that they lack institutional support when it comes to classroom practice. So that's why we decided to organize the second workshop and actually invite the teacher educators to reach wider audience. When it comes to the impact of the workshop and the participants' feedback, we organized on several occasions post-workshop surveys, and many participants reported that they're actually using the materials and resources that were shared in the workshop in their classrooms. Some of them said that they have become more aware of how students who speak different mother tongues from the language of schooling actually feel when they arrive in this classroom, and the teachers have become more understanding and supportive of these students. Many teachers who participated in our workshop disseminated the insights from the workshop with fellow colleagues, and some of them also reported that they have started school projects with fellow colleagues who are foreign language teachers and subject teachers. And we as an organization actually saw through these workshops how important the topic of multilingualism in the Serbian context is. So in 2025, we accredited a professional development course for teachers in Serbia on the topic of CLIL in foreign language teaching, and also promoting resources for multilingualism, as we want to train as many teachers in Serbia as possible. And the first two trainings will be organized in November. We expect around 60 participants to attend. And it is important to stress that in this session, in this training, there is a whole session that is dedicated to the ECML resources, including the ones on multilingualism and also CLIL. So we're very grateful for this cooperation with the SMC team and the ECML. And I would really like to point out to all those who might be interested or considering to organize this workshop that it was a very useful experience, and that the participants are actually using the materials and the resources that they learned about in the workshop, and also the trainers were amazing. So it was a very useful experience for us.
Thanks a lot, Milena, for sharing your experiences with us. And now, Daniel, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us to share our experiences. We hope that it can bring some inspiration to people who are considering organizing this type of workshops. When it comes to Sweden and our participation in the Supporting Multilingual Classrooms workshops, the background to us wanting to organize the workshops is that in 2015, Sweden, as well as many other European countries, we received a high number of migrants. And this partially changed the scenery for teachers, with more heterogeneous groups of pupils when it comes to their knowledge of the languages of schooling. Many teachers then started to express needs of learning more about how to teach with an increasingly diverse group of students. And we found that the contents of Supporting Multilingual Classrooms matched those needs. So we applied to the ECML to organize these workshops, and we were fortunate enough to arrange workshops in Sweden in 2019, 2021, and 2024. We wanted many different kinds of teachers to have the opportunity to participate on the different occasions. And therefore, we've chosen to invite participants from specific target groups of teachers with a different target group for every workshop, in order not to put all the eggs in one basket, so to speak. Another choice that we have made is to always invite 2 teachers per school. They should teach different subjects, but they should have the same pupils in order to motivate the participating teachers to collaborate with each other and thus not having to carry the weight all alone. Two examples of this combination of subject teachers are, for instance, mother tongue teachers together with Swedish as a second language teachers. And on another occasion, we had teachers of Swedish as a second language together with teachers of vocational subjects. We always invite the participants to a digital follow-up meeting about 6 months after each workshop in order to hear how the work is progressing. Not all the participants from the workshop do join in during these digital follow-up sessions, about half of the group, I would guess. But those who do participate in the follow-up sessions, they tell us about their projects and how they develop their teaching. We've seen examples where teachers of Swedish as a second language have integrated vocabulary from the vocational subjects that the pupils study into their activities, but also cases where mother tongue teachers and Swedish as a second language teachers have participated in each other's lessons together with their common pupils and planned the lessons with a holistic linguistic focus instead of working with only one language at a time. During these follow-up sessions that we have, we also try to invite a guest speaker in order to encourage more participants to join. And the last few times that we've organized them, we've invited Gudrun Svensson, a Swedish researcher within the field of translanguaging, which the participants have enjoyed a lot. In the evaluation, in the different evaluations of the workshops, the participants have mentioned that this type of professional development, and I mean then the actual workshops of supporting multilingual classrooms, that it's a highly unique experience and that they have found many useful tools that they can put into their toolbox of methods and teaching materials. So it is highly appreciated.
Thanks a lot, Daniel, for sharing your experiences with us. Thanks to all the three of you, to Lilia, Milena, and you, Daniel. It was very interesting. So there are many things in common. So all the workshops in the three countries have been focusing on multilingual classrooms and on migrant pupils, but there have been some differences. For example, concerning the target group. So in Portugal, Lilia is focusing mainly on principals. In Serbia, in the second workshop, there has been a focus on teacher trainers. And I would like to add that we are having a module now, which is really focusing on teacher trainers. And you are trying to invite as many different teachers as possible. So thanks a lot. And I'm sure that our audience is inspired. So you might be already thinking about how your workshop would look like. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Katja. Thanks for sharing that so effectively. And thanks also, of course, to Lilia, Milena, and Daniel. It's lovely to see you all again. I'm going to hand over straight away now to Chantal Muller, who will talk us through the experience of being in a workshop. Thanks. Thank you, Chantal.
Thank you, Terry. Je vais essayer de vous montrer en quoi consistent concrètement les ateliers et ce que nous proposons. Il s'agit de discussions, d'échanges entre les membres de l'équipe et les participants, entre les participants eux-mêmes, mais aussi il s'agit d'exemples concrets. Dia suivante. Nous nous attachons particulièrement aux attitudes face au pluri et au multilinguisme. Et pour ce faire, nous utilisons par exemple une des activités suggérées est l'analyse des biographies langagières, ce qui permet de réfléchir aux émotions et aux valeurs liées à différentes langues et de travailler sur les identités linguistiques et culturelles. Suivante. Nous voulons également souligner l'expertise des participants pour la partager. Il est évident que les participants sont des professionnels, soit de l'apprentissage des langues, soit d'autres disciplines. Mais plus particulièrement, ce sont eux qui connaissent le mieux leur contexte et leurs besoins spécifiques. Donc, lors des discussions, nous essayons de valoriser cela et d'adapter ce qui est possible à leurs besoins. Par exemple, quand on travaille sur le visible et l'invisible du multi- et du plurilinguisme. Suivante. Comme déjà dit, beaucoup des activités concrètes que nous suggérons sont cependant à adapter en fonction des besoins et des contextes spécifiques. Et c'est ce que nous faisons tout au long des ateliers. Suivante. Nous utilisons, pour nos suggestions concrètes et nos réflexions également, des programmes et des projets du CELF, bien entendu, mais aussi de l'Union européenne. Par exemple, le CARAP, qui est un cadre de référence pour les approches plurielles des langues et des cultures, ou RECOLANG, qui travaille particulièrement sur l'évaluation des compétences linguistiques des élèves migrants. Et bien d'autres en fonction des demandes que nous avons, dont nous avons discuté au préalable avec les organisateurs. Suivante. Beaucoup de nos... Nous montrons également le site d'SMC et sur ce site, les enseignants peuvent trouver d'autres idées, peut-être d'autres exemples que nous n'avons pas eu le temps de réaliser lors des ateliers, comme par exemple ici, suivante, comment prendre conscience de nos manières d'appréhender les langues et les cultures. Et nous utilisons également, suivante, le site du Conseil de l'Europe avec le programme LIAM, qui est dédié à l'accompagnement linguistique des réfugiés adultes. Voilà, nous espérons que cela vous inspirera pour le futur. Merci.
Merci, Chantal. Merci. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over straight away now to Carla Faria from Portugal. Carla is a teacher. She's a project developer and a manager in Portugal, and she's going to talk to us about the whole school dimension. Carla.
Thank you, Terry. So in our case, Portugal. When our school cluster was invited by, When our school cluster was invited by the Guy to participate in the Developing Language Aware Schools workshop, the director of the school cluster invited me to attend it due to my engagement on improving learning contexts for foreign students in English language acquisition. This workshop was of the utmost importance as it provided creative and relevant approaches, strategies, and activities. It enabled the exchange of good practices within the group of different school clusters attending, as well as trainers. But it especially sparked a change in our mindset. The concept of taking language into account in all subjects was, and still is, quite revolutionary, and yet so difficult to achieve. We acknowledged that language teachers already operate with strategies such as scaffolding and the creation of glossaries that can be shared with teachers of non-linguistic subjects, and that when language awareness really takes place, it allows success in learning, positive attitudes towards diversity and inclusion, to name just some of the most relevant outcomes. The activities shared by the ECML trainers for raising awareness were very engaging and quite effective. We particularly enjoyed the human rights translation activity and one where we had to describe an experiment in another language. However, timetables and tasks that teachers currently have to accomplish are already overwhelming and therefore a great obstacle for the development of language strategies in non-linguistic subjects. So it is still an endeavor to work on this. Since then, the project, the world in our school has been created with some of the input received within the ECML. Students of all age groups have carried out research on several aspects of the nationalities belonging to our school, so as to communicate and highlight the current diversity of our school community. A welcome kit is available. Some students have volunteered to be class ambassadors. There is also a cultural mediator working with them the foreign students, and other school agents. There is a very popular event that is quite tasty too. Students from the hospitality and catering vocational courses organize a kind of street food tasting event. Non-Portuguese parents are cooking non-Portuguese dishes. Events sponsored by the municipality. This is becoming a monthly activity and expanding to a central municipal area. Now we are aiming at another project, linking together the National Literacy Programme, the network of school libraries, and our own school project. This is teaming up students in primary education with their parents, involving reading stories at home. Inspired by Banks with Stories promoted at the ECML workshop, students of other nationalities at higher levels of education will create and record audio files in their native languages from some of the selected stories. Finally, we are currently in touch with another school cluster that attended the same workshop so as to exchange current experiences, ideas, and materials. So not all of this came to existence because of the workshop that we attended, although it definitely inspired us in many ways. In the way we look at things, in the way we approach situations, creating solutions, and motivating kids in doing so, ever evolving. Allow me to tell you a little about me. I've been a teacher of English and German for 35 years, mostly at multicultural schools and in a prison school where I designed English courses. And more recently, I've been developing and articulating projects. I have a degree in modern languages, literatures and cultures, a master's in education, and several seminars from a master's in history of culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you. It's wonderful to have your perspective as a former participant. So many thanks for that. So we continue our tour of Europe now, moving to the Slovak Republic and to Denisa Juranova, who has coordinated a number of our workshops, and including the very first regional workshop. So I'll hand over straight away, Denisa, to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. The SMC Training and Consultancy was organized in the Slovak Republic for 5 years. The first workshop in 2020 and the fifth workshop was held in 2025. In comparison to previous events, the fourth SMC workshop in the Slovak Republic was organized in a little bit different way regarding the concept and target audience. It was organized as a follow-up training and consultancy event and at the same time as an international workshop involving 2 countries, Slovak Republic and Czech Republic. This workshop was specifically for the participants who had already taken part in an SMC workshop in these 2 countries before 2023. So it's really important to mention that it built on previous experiences and it developed further collaboration and networking on national and international level as well. The main reasons behind this Slovak and Czech joint event were the curriculum reform for primary and lower secondary education has been underway in both countries. Then the need to support primary and secondary schools in their effort to successfully manage the process of inclusion of our children of a migration background into the education process on all levels. And despite of many activities, it was still needed to foster professional competencies of teachers, experts, and other professionals in the respective field. As indicated in the next slide, this joint event was successful and beneficial in many aspects and levels. The joint workshop provided a space for cultural and linguistic exchange, sharing of best practices, learning experiences, as the participation in the joint seminar exposed participants to new teaching methods, trends, and topics. The platform for sharing experience in the field of language teaching and polylingual competencies has been extended internationally, as well as the collaboration itself. After this workshop, the international conference was held in Prague in November 2023, as a follow-up event, and there still are ongoing consultancy activities in the respective field among the event participants. And when we talk about the national level and a specific impact, the outcomes and expertise gained from the training and consultancy were used in the process of the development of the national curriculum for primary and lower secondary education. And we talk specifically about the development of the educational standards for Slovak language as a second language. And we use the expertise in the process of the development of various tools, documents, and materials to support schools, teachers, and pupils. The expert team at the National Institute of Education and Youth developed, for example, the overview of examples of resources in the field of language support for children with a mother tongue or first language other than the language of instruction of the school, diagnostic test for Slovak language to identify the level of proficiency for Slovak language, the guide for the inclusion of the children of a migration background into educational process in the Slovak Republic, many dictionaries of basic terms from respective learning areas and subjects in primary and lower secondary education. And these dictionaries are directly linked to the educational standards. We also developed programs of innovative education for in-service teachers. These programs are focused on acquiring Slovak language as a second or foreign language, methodological guide, language course, Slovak as a second language, etc. So that was really just a brief summary about the impact of the SMC training and consultancy events held in the Slovak Republic in the last 5 years. And hopefully our case will be inspirational to other countries and those who would like to organize this kind of workshop. Thank you.
Many thanks, Denisa. That was excellent too. We've had such a great set of presentations. Thank you. You do so much. It's worth saying that actually, whenever we have a workshop in the Slovak Republic, there are always people at the back who are taking notes because they're actually developing curriculum or policy. So it is wonderful to have that impact. So if we move to the next slide, this is the final section before we move to questions and the conclusion. And in fact, my brief was to talk about impact and follow-up, but we've heard a lot about impact and follow-up anyway, I think, from our colleagues. So many thanks for that, because it's much nicer coming from you than it is from me. I'll just share a few examples, though. First of all, I wanted to show, and some of these are short-term and some of them are longer-term. The evaluations, I think, from the participants in the workshops are always very illuminating, both immediately after the workshop, but also 6 months later when there's a follow-up survey. You've got some examples here. I won't read all of them. But the first one, for example, talks about changes the mindset in relation to multilingualism, good moments of interaction. So here we have coming through directly this idea about changing mindsets, which people feel in our workshops very strongly. The second one says something very similar. The second sentence, the need to change our mentality and approach as teachers to deal with our multilingual and multicultural society. This is from Greece. The third one is interesting, and we've already had someone comment on this. It helped me to understand the feelings of a foreigner in the class. Now I'm more aware of the need of an academic language in the subject lessons. This is because, as Chantal said, we operate as a multilingual classroom. We give people the experience. We're usually operating in English or in French, but sometimes if we know the language of the country, we'll bring that in as well. But it's to really help people to reflect on how we're managing a multilingual classroom. And I'll just mention very quickly as well, the fourth comment there, it included activities which raised teachers' confidence in their ability to support students' linguistic development. As we've heard and from Carla, people, I think, sort of feel empowered, to use the word that Katrine used, to go away, take the ideas and to adapt them. This is what we always do. We can't just transfer one thing to another, one resource into another context without some reflection and adaptation. But people are developing confidence to be able to do that. Moving on to the next slide, I thought I'd just show you a lovely photo. This is the short to medium term impact. It's one example of many. This was actually from a participant in Montenegro, and she returned to her school totally inspired and organized a whole school activity that was focused on multilingualism and language awareness. And some projects that people take back are focused on the classroom. This was a whole school one. And what was great was that the government awarded the school a certificate of appreciation in the ministry's Imagine the Future competition. This was wonderful because Montenegro had always said, we don't have a lot of diversity, language diversity at the moment, but we know it's going to come. And so we want to prepare for it, which I think was one of the most wonderful things I've ever heard. The next slide, final one, is the longer term impact. I won't go in detail through these, but certainly there's a constant awareness raising through the media. We've had TV programs, local and national press, developing websites, including resources and developing new resources, network building, including digital networks. I know that some continue to meet long after the workshop, and people sharing their ideas. Further training activities, as we've heard from our colleagues, development of professional accredited courses, conferences. Again, we've heard about conferences too. And that final one there, except there are more, these are just ones I've selected, is the impact on the school curriculum, which is crucial and which has taken place in many, many places that we've worked. I'm going to stop there now to allow time for questions before we then conclude. And I invite Sarah back as well. And I think we probably don't need the slide now.
Thank you very much, Terry, and thank you to everyone who has presented today. I've been very busy answering all of the questions. And it's just been amazing, the number of questions being asked and the richness of these questions. So thank you very much. But of course, one or two have now come in at the last minute, and I've not managed to quickly type an answer to them. But let me just say something to all of you, because it's a question that's been repeated. How on earth can I take part? So you've all been enthused by what you've heard and you want to know how to take part. Basically, what happens is that the ECML once a year, and it's normally towards the very end of the year, late November, early December, sends out a call to all of its member states. If you look on our website, you will see we currently have 36 member states. The call also goes to Portugal and to Italy, who are currently not member states, but who are in the EU. And so it's going through the representation of our governing board. Normally, that's the Ministry of Education or equivalent. And it is for the country then to request a workshop. So if you're sitting listening thinking, oh, I wish we could have one in my school or my region, then look on the governing board website, find out who your governing board representative is, and liaise with them. Obviously, we cannot run these workshops at the level of an individual school. These are done nationally or regionally, or even, as you saw in the case of the Slovak Republic, bringing two countries together when they did their workshop together with Czechia. So that's a key question that's being asked. Now, here's another one, which I think the answer to which will interest everybody, and I would invite the members of the Supporting Multilingual Classrooms team, please, to turn your cameras back on for one of you to volunteer to take this question. So the question is, how can a multilingual classroom be managed when teaching a foreign language? A very, very useful question, and I'm sure our experts have plenty to say on this topic. So who would like to answer that question? Terry, go for it. Because I'm not seeing any of your colleagues turning their cameras back on yet. So in the meantime, why don't you answer that one? Thank you.
Waiting in case they wanted to say something, but we do quite a lot of work in our workshops looking at how we draw on our plurilingual learners' languages in order to learn other languages. So through comparing languages, for example, and this can be on the level of vocabulary, it can be on the level of grammar or whatever. But we come from the position that children bring with them a lot of linguistic knowledge and skills. They don't just come as an empty vessel. They bring something to their language learning. And so we nurture that opportunity to think, reflect on other languages and to compare them in order to learn a foreign language as well. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to add anything there. It is quite a major part of our work.
Thank you for that one, Terry. Katja, did you want to add something?
I wanted to say that in our workshops, we have really a lot of different activities where we show how this can be put into practice. So we will not be giving speeches in our workshops, but we'll put you in the shoes of the students so that you can then experience how it is. And then we reflect about the activities. And this is really a big part of our work in the workshops.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm conscious of time and that we should probably now be drawing the webinar to a close. I'm just going to read teacher training modules in an Asian context. Okay, I might just come in and answer that one. Of course, our work is primarily for ECML member states and European Union member states. But all of our resources are freely available on the ECML's website, and they include teacher training modules. If you look at the thematic area, plurilingual and intercultural education, or the thematic area, the languages of schooling, you will find a number of resources there that you can use in any context. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. We make our resources available to everyone. Unfortunately, what we cannot do outside of our member states and the member states of the European Union is deliver workshops for you. I have tried to answer as many of the questions in the chat as I can. People are still asking about how to take part. Please look on the Supporting Multilinguals website. It explains exactly there how you can apply for a workshop, but a reminder, it needs to go through your national governing board member or your contact at the ministry in Portugal and in Italy. And I think, Terry, unless there's anything else you would like to add, I will move to the thank yous. Is that okay? Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow, this has been very enriching, even for me as I was typing and listening. So I was multitasking. I would like to say an enormous thank you, first of all, to those people who've come along and shared their experience with us. And it was so clear from their input just how much thought and preparation went into that. So a very big thank you to Milena, to Daniel, to Carla, to Lilia, and to Denisa. Wow, well done. Thank you so much. And of course, yes, a round of applause. And a very big thank you to our wonderful Supporting Multilingual Classrooms team. who've been doing this now for a number of years and whose enthusiasm never seems to wane. So a huge thank you to Catherine, to Chantal, to Katia and to Terry, and to Mercé if she's listening in the background, because she's always there helping us whenever we need her. So from the ECML side, we really hope this has been a useful webinar to you. As Michael perhaps indicated, or it was in the chat, the video and the slides will be available either tomorrow or on Monday. Please tell anyone you know who would think this is interest but couldn't make it today to take a look at the website, and all the information is there. Thank you as well to Georg, to our interpreter. Thank you to my colleagues, Adelina, Michael and Chris, for all the technical support. And I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, but I probably have. Oh, and thank you to Terry's dog, who's in the background but didn't bark. So that's very, very good for the webinar. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye, and have a lovely evening or rest of the day, depending on the part of the world you're in. Thank you.
And thank you to you, Sarah, as well.
Pleasure. Pleasure as always. Bye-bye.